You know, lately I've been thinking a lot about fatherhood. Maybe you've been thinking about it too. At some point in life, every man asks himself, what does it mean to be a good father? I think it's one of the hardest questions in the world, because out there you'll hear thousands of different answers. Some say, just provide a good future for your child, that's enough. Others insist, set rules, be an authority. And then there are those who say, be your child's friend. But here's the truth. None of these are enough on their own. Because fatherhood isn't a title, it's a journey of character. A man has to manage his own life while also becoming a guiding light in someone else's. And you know what? Stoic philosophy has given me an incredible perspective on this. According to the Stoics, fatherhood isn't about forcing lessons onto your child. It's about living those lessons. Marcus Aurelius has a quote that really struck me. A man finds happiness by fulfilling the purpose of his nature. For a father, that purpose is to be a virtuous leader for his family. But leadership here doesn't mean barking orders or handing out punishments. It means being an example. Teaching your child how to be a good person, not just with your words, but through your actions. Because kids, they don't really listen to you as much as they watch you. They learn less from your voice and more from your behavior. How you react, what makes you angry, what you're patient about. They see and record everything. And this is where the teachings of the Stoic philosophers really come in. There's so much we can learn from Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca. They lived thousands of years ago, but human nature hasn't changed. Our fears, our hopes, our love, our expectations, they're still the same today. In this video, we'll explore what it means to be a father through the teachings of these three great Stoics. But don't worry, this isn't going to be academic or boring. Think of it more like we're figuring it out together. Because in the end, it all comes down to this. To be a good father, you don't start with your child. You start with yourself. Ready? Let's dive in. Let me take you back 1800 years, to the height of the Roman Empire. On the throne sat a man, Marcus Aurelius. An entire empire rested on his shoulders. Armies, political intrigues, rebellions, wars. Yet what I want to share with you today isn't about the battles he fought with swords or legions. It's about the battle he fought within himself, a battle of character. Marcus had absolute power. But here's the fascinating part. For him, power wasn't a privilege, it was a burden. And perhaps the heaviest part of that burden was fatherhood. Because Marcus wasn't just a leader for the Roman people. He was a leader in the eyes of his own children. And he understood something profound. Being a good father wasn't about leaving behind wealth or status. It was about leaving behind character. If you've ever read his personal writings, known today as meditations, you get a glimpse into the inner world of this emperor. He wrote them in the midst of chaos, on battlefields, inside campaign tents during sleepless nights. He wasn't writing for anyone else. He was talking to himself. What did I do right today? Where did I go wrong? Which anger defeated me? Imagine that, a man with unlimited power yet still wrestling with his flaws every single day. And that's where real fatherhood begins. Before we can guide our children, we must manage ourselves. Before we can set an example for them, we must first find balance within. Marcus often spoke to his sons about virtue. To him, a father's true legacy wasn't gold or land. It was a moral compass. One of his reflections captures this perfectly. Do not leave your children gold. Leave them something more precious than gold, a good character. This was at the heart of his philosophy as both emperor and father, the power of example. Because children, they don't really listen to what you say, they watch what you do. Even as emperor, Marcus lived simply. While lavish feasts were served in the imperial palaces, he often chose modest meals. Why? Because he wanted his children to see that true happiness doesn't come from external wealth, but from inner peace. And isn't the same true today? If you want to teach your child honesty, saying, "Be honest," isn't enough. They need to see your honesty in action. If you want to teach respect, you must first show them respect yourself. Marcus has another quote I love: "Live the way you want your children to see you as a father." That, in many ways, is the essence of Stoic fatherhood. Giving advice is easy, but children don't copy your words, they copy your life. One of the greatest Stoic lessons is the ability to master your emotions. And Marcus lived this both on the Roman throne and as a father. We all face challenging moments as parents, don't we? Your child makes a mistake. You feel your patience snap. It's so easy to yell in that moment. But according to the Stoics, true strength lies in not losing control. Marcus puts it beautifully. Nothing external can harm you unless you allow it to. This is an incredible guide when raising children. When your child messes up, yes, it can be exhausting. But instead of reacting in anger, you can pause and ask yourself, what response here reflects the kind of father I want to be? Marcus lived by this principle. Even in times of war or political crisis, he chose calm over panic. He knew that a father's state of mind sets the tone of the entire household. At the center of Marcus Aurelius' approach to fatherhood were values. To him, wealth, status, and fame were fleeting. Character was permanent. That's why he constantly reminded his children, what matters is not what you accumulate outside, but what you cultivate inside. And isn't that something we still struggle with today? As fathers, we work hard to prepare our children for the future, better schools, better homes, better jobs. But Marcus's approach was different. You cannot control where life takes you, but you can control who you are. The greatest inheritance we can leave our children is inner strength. Circumstances change, fortunes vanish, luck turns, but virtue remains. That's why Marcus Aurelius' life still speaks to us today. Managing an empire and raising a family may seem worlds apart, but in both the responsibilities are the same: to lead by example, to live your values, to master your emotions. You may not be ruling Rome, but you are ruling your own little empire, your family. And like Marcus, you can ask yourself this question every day: what kind of person am I showing my children I am? The answer isn't in your lectures or advice, it's in the way you live. From Marcus Aurelius, we learn 3 timeless truths about fatherhood. Being an example is the foundation of fatherhood. Managing your emotions is managing your home's peace. Living your values is the greatest legacy you can leave. And perhaps the most powerful lesson of all. In Stoic philosophy, being a good father begins with being a good man. Because true fatherhood isn't about ruling over others, it's about mastering yourself. Marcus Aurelius taught us the power of leading by example. But here's the thing. Life doesn't always work the way we want it to. And this is where Epictetus steps onto the stage. Epictetus' story, to me, is one of the most striking ways to understand the essence of Stoicism. Why? Because he didn't discover freedom in palaces or power, but in chains. Epictetus was born in 55 AD in Phrygia as a slave. Yes, you heard that right. One of Rome's greatest philosophers started life owning nothing. According to some accounts, his leg was crippled in childhood, possibly from abuse by his master. Imagine that. A broken body but an unbroken spirit. Back then, being a slave meant having nothing. No freedom, no possessions, not even the right to decide your own future. And yet, in the darkest period of his life, Epictetus realized something profound. My body may belong to someone else, but my mind is mine. That's where the heart of Stoic philosophy beats. Think about this as a father. Can you really control your child's entire life? No, you can't. The world changes, circumstances shift, people evolve. But there's one priceless thing you can teach them: how to be the master of their own mind. One of Epictetus' core teachings is the foundation of Stoicism. Focus on what you can control. Accept what you cannot. As a father, this can become an incredible compass. Because let's be honest, we often burn ourselves out trying to control everything for our kids. We want to protect them from pain. We want their lives to be easy. We want them to be happy all the time. But life doesn't flow according to our plans. You can't predict every challenge your child will face. You can't walk every road for them. Your role isn't to draw their path, it's to teach them how to walk. Epictetus often told his students, "You can shoot the arrow, but you cannot control the wind." Isn't fatherhood exactly like that? We do our best. We teach. We guide. We love. We protect. But eventually life's winds take over and our children are carried to places we can't control. And so the wisest thing we can do is teach them to strengthen their wings. Epictetus also understood that true freedom begins within, and the greatest key to that freedom is patience. And let's be honest, patience might be the hardest test for any father. Think about it. Your child makes a mistake. You warn them. They repeat it. Then they do it again. In those moments, keeping calm isn't exactly easy, is it? But for the Stoics, this is where real wisdom begins. Epictetus lived this himself. As a slave, he was humiliated, mistreated, and beaten many times, and yet, he never surrendered to anger. Because he understood something powerful. Losing yourself to anger is surrendering the freedom of your own mind. And as fathers, that's a lesson worth remembering. When we respond to our children's mistakes with patience rather than punishment, we build trust. We allow them the freedom to make mistakes while also helping them face the consequences. And that balance is where real growth happens. Even after he was freed, Epictetus never chased luxury or wealth. He lived simply because he believed happiness isn't found outside but within. One day, a student asked him, "Master, how can I be truly free?" Epictetus' answer was timeless. Freedom is not doing whatever you want. Freedom is wanting to do what you must. For a father, this insight is worth gold, because one of the greatest gifts we can give our children is a sense of responsibility. And like everything else in Stoicism, this can't just be taught with words. It has to be lived. Think about this. Your child doesn't want to study. You could simply say, "Go study." But how effective is that? Not much. Now imagine they see you fulfilling your responsibilities day after day without excuses. They see your discipline. They watch your consistency. That's where the real teaching happens, because freedom isn't the absence of responsibility. It's the discipline that allows us to live with peace. Another vital lesson from Epictetus is the acceptance of life's uncontrollable parts. As a father, there will come a day when your child's choices won't match your dreams. Their career path, their hobbies, their friends, even their values. Sometimes they'll choose differently than you imagined. And this is where the Stoic mindset becomes essential. Allow your child to discover their own nature. Guide them, but don't force them. Don't impose your values. Instead, show them why living with virtue matters. Epictetus put it perfectly. No one can be happy when forced to live against their own nature. And that's the essence of fatherhood, isn't it? Our role isn't to shape our children into who we want them to be. Our role is to help them discover who they are meant to be. Epictetus's life, born in chains, teaches us something timeless. True freedom doesn't come from external circumstances, it comes from within. And fatherhood gives us one of the most powerful opportunities to pass this truth on. We teach patience because life wears down the impatient. We teach focus because disappointment is inevitable without it. We teach character because everything else changes, but the self remains. Epictetus may have lived with chains on his body, but never on his mind. And maybe, just maybe, the greatest inheritance we can give our children is exactly that: the power to discover their own inner freedom. Epictetus shows us the strength of patience and the wisdom of acceptance. But fatherhood isn't only about waiting quietly, it's also about guiding with love. And that brings us to another great Stoic philosopher, Seneca. Epictetus taught us patience and acceptance. But fatherhood isn't just about patience. Sometimes it's about showing love. Sometimes it's about setting boundaries. And this is where one of the most debated yet wisest voices of Stoicism steps in: Seneca. Seneca was born into one of Rome's wealthiest families. In a way, you could say he was the opposite of Epictetus, an aristocrat, not a slave. But wealth didn't make his life easy. He faced illness, exile, political conspiracies, and perhaps his greatest challenge, being a mentor to one of Rome's most unpredictable emperors, Nero. Imagine that for a moment. Seneca was both a philosopher and a man of influence, living at the heart of power. He preached virtue and praised simplicity, yet spent years surrounded by luxury and excess. And that's exactly what makes his teaching so valuable. Seneca wasn't speaking from a quiet mountain retreat. He was right in the middle of life's chaos, just like us, trying to make sense of it all. That's why, when it comes to fatherhood, Seneca feels like such a realistic guide. One of Seneca's most profound lessons is about loving with balance. To him, a life without love is empty and meaningless. But he also warned that too much love, especially in parenting, can unintentionally harm a child's growth. In one of his letters, he writes, "Love your child in such a way that you remember you may lose them." At first, this sounds harsh, even unsettling, but it's actually one of the deepest insights of Stoic thought. Because the truth is, nothing in life is guaranteed. Not wealth, not health, not even the people we love most. And as parents, we can't hold on to our children forever. Seneca's message isn't about loving less, it's about loving wisely. Love them deeply. Be connected. But don't be dependent. Because when love turns into attachment, we not only lose our own sense of freedom, but we also risk weakening theirs. For a father, this balance is everything. Don't keep your child at a cold, distant length. But don't suffocate them with overprotection either. Love when tempered with discipline. Compassion when balanced with boundaries. That's when love becomes guidance. One of Seneca's most famous works is on the shortness of life. In it, he writes, "Life is not short. We just waste much of it." Now think about that as a father. How many dads say, "I wish I'd spent more quality time with my child"? Work, money, responsibilities, they always seem to come first. But Seneca challenges us to see time differently. It's not about how long we spend with our children. It's about how deeply we spend it. An hour of genuine connection beats 10 hours of distracted presence. So when you're with your child, be there fully. Not just physically, but mentally and emotionally, not scrolling on your phone, not thinking about tomorrow's meeting, just being present. Because one day they won't remember the hours you spent, they'll remember the moments you gave them. Seneca also speaks often about discipline, but his idea of discipline is not about strictness or control. For him, discipline is a gentle form of guidance. Children make mistakes. That's inevitable. Our instinct as parents is often to punish quickly, to fix the behavior immediately. But Seneca reminds us, punishment given in anger teaches nothing. It only breeds fear. That's powerful, isn't it? Because the goal of discipline isn't to scare our children, it's to shape their character. Rules without explanation become meaningless. But when we show our children the why behind our values, the purpose behind the boundaries, they begin to internalize those lessons. True discipline doesn't crush, it builds. It doesn't control, it guides. There's another recurring theme in Seneca's writings: mortality. He often reminds us that death isn't something to fear, but something to remember. At first, this sounds dark, but in reality, it's liberating. Because when we remember that life is finite, we start living fully. For fathers, this awareness is powerful. Every day with your child is a gift. You won't always be there to protect them. You won't always be by their side. That's why there's no room for someday. Don't say, one day I'll teach them. Teach them today. Don't say, one day I'll spend time with them. Spend it now. Because tomorrow isn't promised. Seneca writes, "For those who know they will die, nothing comes too soon." Fatherhood is no different. The lessons, the love, the memories, they need to happen now. If we distill Seneca's teachings on fatherhood into 3 key insights, they'd look like this. 1. Love deeply but wisely, show compassion, connection, but don't confuse love with dependence. Love prepares them for life. It doesn't shield them from it. 2. Value time over hours. It's not about how much time you spend, it's about how present you are. Meaningful memories outlast long, distracted hours. 3. Guide with virtue, not fear. Discipline isn't punishment, it's teaching. Don't control through anger, instead lead with wisdom and example. Seneca understood life's impermanence better than most. But he didn't use that awareness to sink into despair. He used it to live more intentionally. And maybe that's his greatest gift to us as fathers. The reminder that raising children isn't about control or perfection. It's about balance. Balancing love and discipline. Balancing presence and guidance. Balancing holding on and letting go. Marcus Aurelius taught us to lead by example. Epictetus showed us the strength of patience and freedom. And Seneca reminds us of the wisdom of love and balance. Together, their teachings give us a compass, one that can guide modern fathers through the most timeless journey of all, raising the next generation with intention, virtue, and heart. And what's? Maybe by now, you've realized something. Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca lived completely different lives. One was an emperor, another a slave in chains, and the third a philosopher at court. And yet, despite their differences, all their teachings lead to the same truth. The world does not control you. You control how you meet the world. Fatherhood is very much the same kind of journey. You can't protect your child from everything. You can't control what life throws their way, how people treat them, or the circumstances they'll face. But you can control yourself, your actions, your example, your love. Marcus Aurelius reminds us that children learn less through what they hear and more through what they see. They don't need endless lectures. They need living examples. A patient, fair, and virtuous father shapes his child's character without even realizing it. Epictetus, from within his chains, whispers another timeless lesson. Focus on what you can control. Accept what you cannot. Fatherhood isn't about controlling every step of your child's life. It's about teaching them to walk their own path. We can't remove life's storms, but we can teach them how to stand tall in the rain. True freedom lies not in changing the world, but in mastering our own minds. And then there's Seneca, who teaches us the measure of love. Yes, we should show our children endless affection, but we must also prepare them for life. Overprotection doesn't make them stronger. It makes them fragile. Seneca reminds us, love your child in such a way that you remember you may lose them. That single line carries everything: the value of love, the limits of time, the importance of living fully in the present. Because fatherhood in many ways is a Stoic journey: patience, self-discipline, compassion, balance, acceptance. The greatest inheritance we can leave our children isn't a house, a car, or a bank account. It's character. If we teach them virtue, if we give them the courage to make their own decisions, if we help them discover their inner freedom, then we've fulfilled our role. And maybe at the end of the day, being a good father comes down to understanding one simple truth. Our children are not ours. They are life's gift entrusted to us for a while. Our job isn't to shape their path. It's to prepare them for it. And then, when the time comes, to let them walk it. So take a deep breath. Fatherhood isn't about being perfect. It's about accepting imperfection with wisdom. And perhaps that's the greatest lesson the Stoics give us: to remain calm in life's flow, to guide with love, and when the time comes, to have the strength to let go. That's what it means to be a Stoic father. Thank you for watching.